The garden thief John lived alone on the edge of a quiet forest. His small house was old but peaceful, surrounded by trees and birds. But his favorite place was the garden. He had worked hard for it, planting tomatoes, carrots, and potatoes. It was his pride, his joy, his reward for leaving the busy city behind. Every morning, John walked into the garden with his coffee. He looked at every plant, smiled at every green leaf. He believed no one came near until one strange morning, things changed. John noticed something odd. Several tomatoes were missing, some vines were broken, and the dirt near the fence had small prints, not shoes, not animal paws. They were long, narrow, with 3 toes, too strange to be normal.
"Must be raccoons,"
John mumbled, but he didn't believe it. The next day, more vegetables were gone, and the prints were back. He looked around the fence, but it was too tall for animals to climb. No sign of a break-in, no sign of human footprints. Curious and a little worried, John decided to stay up at night. He made a plan. He brought a flashlight and hid behind the garden shed with his warm jacket and coffee. The night was cold and silent. He waited. Hours passed, nothing but the sound of owls and wind, but then, at midnight, something moved. He saw a shadow creeping near the edge of the garden. It was small, thin, and quick. The figure stepped into the moonlight, and John's heart almost stopped. It wasn't human. It had pale blue skin, glowing eyes, and long arms. It looked left. And right then, slowly started picking vegetables, gently, carefully, like someone stealing but not wanting to damage anything. John raised his flashlight and clicked it on. The light hit her face. It was a female. She froze, eyes wide in fear. She dropped the basket in her hands, and the tomatoes rolled across the ground. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then John said, "Who are you?" She didn't answer, only looked scared. She took one step back, then another, as if ready to run. But then, in a soft, broken voice, she spoke. "Please, don't hurt. I need food," she said. Her English was strange, but he understood. "My children. They are hungry," she added. Her hands shook as she pointed at the vegetables. Tears formed in her glowing eyes. John lowered the flashlight. He could see her clearly. Now her clothes were torn, her arms thin, and a small wound on her leg. She looked tired, afraid, and lost. This was no invader. She was just desperate. He didn't know what to say. This was something out of a science fiction movie. An alien woman in his garden, stealing food not to attack but to feed her family. Suddenly, she looked over her shoulder. Her body stiffened, her eyes wide with fear. "They are coming," she whispered. "If they find me, you die too." John stepped forward. Who's coming?" But she didn't answer. She grabbed her basket, but before running, she paused. "Please," she said again, "I come back tomorrow." And just like that, she vanished into the woods, fast and quiet, like a shadow. John stood there, frozen, flashlight still in hand. The garden was silent again, but his heart was loud. What just happened? Was this real? Was he dreaming? He looked down at the basket she left behind. Only one carrot remained. He picked it up slowly, feeling the cold night air around him, and for the first time in years, John felt something new, fear mixed with wonder. Something strange had come into his life, and it was just the beginning. John couldn't sleep that night. He sat by his window, eyes fixed on the dark forest. Every crack in the wood, every whisper of the wind made him jump. His flashlight still rested on the table beside him. The basket she dropped was there too, holding one lonely carrot. He didn't know what to do. Was she really an alien? Was she dangerous? Or was she just scared and alone? Morning came, but John didn't go to his garden. He stayed inside, thinking, remembering her eyes. She wasn't like the aliens in movies. No lasers, no flying ships, no evil grin. Just a quiet voice and hungry eyes. By evening, John made a decision. He placed a small pile of vegetables near the edge of the garden. Tomatoes, carrots, a bit of bread and water. Then he waited again, hiding near the trees. Hours passed, and then movement. She appeared just like before, silent and cautious. She looked around nervously, then walked toward the food. When she saw it, her shoulders relaxed. She picked up a tomato and held it like it was gold. "Hey," John whispered, stepping out slowly. She gasped and dropped the tomato. Backing away? "It's okay," he said quickly, raising his hands. "I won't hurt you, I promise." She stared at him, breathing fast. Then, after a long pause, she spoke. "You helped me." "I did," John replied, "and I want to understand." She looked down, then slowly nodded. "My name is Sierra," she said, pointing at herself. "I come from far sky." John pointed to himself. "I'm John." He motioned to the porch. "Come, sit, please." She hesitated, then followed, her bare feet almost silent on the dirt. John brought out a chair and a blanket. She sat, wrapping herself in it. Shaking from the cold, her skin was smooth, light blue, and faintly glowing under the moon. "I'm not bad," she said softly. "I run from them." "Who?" John asked. "Who's chasing you?" She looked up at the stars, her eyes full of fear. "Trackers," she whispered. "They find, they take, they kill." John listened carefully. Sierra told him her ship had crashed 3 weeks ago. Deep in the forest, she had been hiding ever since. She wasn't a soldier. Not a spy, just a mother trying to protect her children. They were with her on the ship, but during the crash, they got separated. "I search," she said. "But no food, no help, no light." Her voice cracked, and she looked down. "They are small, like me. They cry." John's heart felt heavy. She wasn't a threat, she was a refugee. He thought of the news, of war, of people fleeing across oceans. This was the same story but from another planet. "I want to help," John said quietly. Sierra looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "Why?" John paused. "Because no one else will." She nodded slowly, understanding. Then she reached into her small bag and pulled out a strange object. It was metallic, glowing faintly, shaped like a cube. She pressed it, and a small hologram appeared. 3 small figures, children, like her, but younger. They were smiling, playing in a strange field with purple grass. "My children," she said, tears in her eyes. "They are somewhere here. But I not find." John leaned forward. "Then we find them together." Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed from the forest. A clicking noise, like metal snapping. Sierra jumped to her feet, eyes wild with fear. "They near," she said quickly. "We must go." John grabbed his flashlight and led her to his barn. It was old but dry and hidden from the road. He cleared out some tools, made space in the hay. "You can stay here for now," he said. "No one will find you." She stepped inside, looking around. "It is safe," she whispered. John gave her some blankets, water, and more food. Then he locked the barn door quietly and returned to the house. He stood by the window again, but this time not alone in thought. He had a secret now, a visitor from the stars, and maybe, just maybe, a mission. John didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. This woman, Sierra, had changed his life forever, and tomorrow they would begin the search for her children, no matter what. Waited in the forest. The night was colder than before. Clouds covered the moon, and the wind had no song. John sat on his bed, staring at the barn through the window. Inside, Sierra was hidden beneath hay and shadows. He had locked the door, not to trap her, to protect her. His mind was full of questions. What if someone saw her? What if these trackers were already here? And more than anything, What kind of danger had he just invited into his quiet life? But deep inside, John didn't feel fear. He felt responsibility. Cira wasn't a monster. She was a mother. And someone or something was hunting her. The clock struck midnight, just as he was about to close his eyes. A noise snapped him awake. It was faint, but sharp, like a clicking sound, unnatural and distant. John stood up slowly and grabbed his flashlight. He opened the window and listened. The clicking came again, this time from the woods near the garden. He turned off the lights in his house and stepped outside. The air was heavy, filled with silence that felt too perfect. His boots crunched the gravel softly as he moved toward the barn. Then he saw it. A shape, tall and still, standing near the edge of the forest. It wasn't human. Its body was thin, almost skeletal. It had long arms and something glowing on its chest. John ducked behind a tree, heart racing. The figure didn't move. It simply stood there, scanning the field with green lights blinking from its eyes. Suddenly, another one appeared beside it, two of them, both staring at the garden. John held his breath. Were these the trackers? One of the creatures raised its arm and pointed toward the barn. John's chest tightened. Did they know? The taller one took out a small, flat device and pressed a button. A blue wave of light spread across the field, quiet, smooth, like a ripple in water. It passed over the garden, over the shed. And right through John, he felt nothing, but he knew what it was. They were scanning. The creatures looked at each other, then turned back to the forest. They didn't speak, but their movements were sharp and exact. Like machines, they disappeared into the trees without a sound. John waited. 5 minutes, maybe more. Then he ran to the barn and unlocked it. Cira was already standing inside, alert, holding a metal rod that looked like a weapon. "They came," she said quietly. John nodded. "I saw them. They didn't find me," she added. "But they know this place." John looked around the barn. "We have to move you," he said. "Where?" she asked. "I have no ship, no tools." John thought for a moment, then said, "There's an old cellar under the shed. Nobody's opened it in years." The next hour was tense. John cleared out the shed while Cira waited in the shadows. Under a pile of tools, he found the wooden door to the cellar. It creaked when he opened it, revealing a dark space with stone walls and a dirt floor. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it's deep, and it's hidden." Cira climbed down slowly, her eyes adjusting to the dark quickly. She looked around and said, "It's safe." For now, John brought her food, blankets, and a flashlight before closing the door. She touched his arm gently. "You are kind," she said. John gave a small smile. "Get some rest. We'll figure things out in the morning." Back in the house, John didn't sleep. Instead, he powered on his old laptop. He started searching for anything strange news about. Lights in the sky, missing hikers, government activity nearby. And then he saw something. A local blog post, only a few hours old. A farmer 5 miles away had found his cows dead. No blood. No tracks, just deep circular burns in the grass. John leaned back in his chair. The trackers weren't just looking. They were sending a message. He looked out the window once more. The forest was quiet again, but it felt like the silence before a storm. Tomorrow, he would ask Cira more. Who built the trackers? Why were they after her? And were they coming back? One thing was certain now. John wasn't just hiding an alien. He was standing between her and something deadly. The night grew darker, and far in the sky, a red light blinked. Not a star, not a plane, something watching. The visitors had arrived. And they weren't done yet. Asterisk morning came, but it felt like night inside John's head. He hadn't slept, his mind spinning with thoughts and questions. Outside, the world looked normal. Birds sang. The sun warmed the grass, but John knew nothing was normal anymore. He walked quietly to the shed, checked the garden, then opened the cellar door. Sira sat in the corner, eyes closed. Holding a strange object in her hand, it looked like a silver stone, but it glowed faintly and pulsed with soft blue light. "You're okay?" John asked, stepping down carefully. Sira opened her eyes, nodded, and stood. "They didn't find me," she said, "but they will try again." John sat on an old crate. "I need to understand more." Sira looked at him and took a deep breath. Then she placed the glowing stone on the floor between them. "This is my beacon," she said. "It is broken, but maybe still listens." She pressed her fingers on its side, and symbols lit up on its surface. A gentle hum filled the air. And then a soft female voice began to speak, not in English, but in a flowing alien language. Sira listened with wide eyes, then looked at John. "It's a message from my children," she said, her voice shaking. "They are alive." John leaned forward. "They sent that now." Sira nodded slowly. "They have part of a beacon too. They use it to call me." The voice played again, then ended with a long pause. Sira touched the device again, and a small hologram appeared. Two young aliens stood in the image, waving, smiling, calling out. John felt his chest tightened. This wasn't just survival. This was family. "Where are they?" he asked. "I don't know," she said sadly. "The signal is weak, broken." John stood up and paced the cellar. "Maybe we can boost the signal," he said. "I have some old radios, batteries, wires." Sira's eyes lit up with hope. "You would help." John nodded. "Let's try." They spent hours together, digging through John's old workshop. He brought down wires, circuits, even parts from a broken radio. Sira carefully opened the beacon, revealing glowing threads. Inside, with John's tools and her alien knowledge, they began to work. It wasn't easy. Sira's fingers moved fast, but sometimes she trembled. John soldered wires with shaky hands, but he focused. They shared few words, but something passed between them: trust. By sunset, the beacon pulsed brighter, stronger. Sira pressed it again, and this time the voice was clearer. A single word came through: mountains. Sira looked up sharply. "They are near mountains, not far." John opened a map and showed her a nearby range. "If they're hiding there," he said, "we can find them." But just as they started to plan, something strange happened. The beacon made a new sound, a sharp buzz, followed by static. Then a second signal appeared. It's different from the first. Sira's face went pale. "That is not my children." The signal was stronger, louder, and it came with a new hologram. A red symbol, a triangle with 3 black dots. Sira stepped back, fear in her eyes. "It's them," she whispered. "The trackers. They found us." John stared at the symbol. It was simple, cold, a teen, somehow threatening. The beacon shut down on its own, going dark. "We need to move now," Sira said. "They sent a warning. They're close." John grabbed a backpack and filled it with essentials: food, flashlight, water. They had to reach the mountains before the trackers did. But before leaving, John had an idea. He ran back into the house and found an old walkie-talkie set. He gave one to Sira, showed her how to press the button. "If we get separated," he said, "use this. It's not perfect, but it might help." Sira held it carefully, nodding. "Thank you." She said, "Human tools are clever." Just before they left, John looked back at his home. It might not be standing when he returned, but it didn't matter now. He had a mission. They moved into the forest. Following the map, the beacon stayed in Sira's hand, pulsing. With quiet hope behind them in the shadows, another pulse began. Read. Slow and watching. Far above, something in orbit received the tracker's message. Coordinates locked, target moving. Earth was no longer quiet, and the stars were no longer silent. The mountain trail was rough, trees grew thick, and the ground was muddy from last night's rain. John helped Sierra climb over fallen logs and through narrow paths. Above them, clouds moved fast. Hiding the sun again and again, the beacon pulsed. Softly in Sierra's hand, it blinked blue every few minutes. Like a heartbeat, they followed the signal, slowly moving toward the place her children had called from. Neither of them spoke much. Every sound in the forest made them stop and listen. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of a branch. Then, around a bend, they found something unexpected. A cabin, old and half-covered in vines, sat quietly in a clearing. Smoke rose gently from its chimney. John frowned. No one should be living this deep, Sirius. Grip on the beacon tightened. The signal is near here, she said. But not inside. Still, John walked toward the cabin. Slowly, carefully. He knocked on the door once. Then twice. It opened. Just a crack. A man stood there, tall, thin, and wearing dark clothes. He had no expression, no warmth in his eyes. Lost. The man asked in a deep voice. John smiled politely. Just hiking, needed some directions. The man looked at Sierra, his eyes pausing for a moment too long. Then he opened the door wider. You should come in, he said. Storm's coming. John hesitated. Sierra stepped closer to him and whispered, He is not human. John's heart skipped. Now he saw it tooth away. The man stood too still. How his skin looked almost too perfect. Like it was made, not born. They stepped inside slowly. The cabin was warm. A fire crackled in the fireplace. But something felt wrong. On the shelf were strange tools, glowing blue wires, and a map of the forest with red marks. John tried to stay calm. So, what brings you all the way out here? John asked. The man turned and smiled, but it was hollow. I study nature, he said. I observe. Sierra looked around the room, then at the man. You are a tracker, she said, voice sharp. The man didn't deny it. He smiled again, wider this time, but his eyes remained cold. You're clever. For a dying race, he replied. Then his hand moved fast, too fast. He pressed something on his wrist, and a small drone flew out of the wall, blinking red. John grabbed a chair and smashed it into the drone before it could rise. It crashed to the floor, sparks flying. Sierra threw the beacon against the wall, and it flashed bright blue, sending a shockwave across the room. The man stumbled back, his face flickering like a screen, then shifting to reveal metal underneath. Run! John shouted, grabbing Sierra's hand. They dashed out of the cabin and back into the trees. Behind them, the cabin exploded into sound, shouting, buzzing, and the whir of machines. They sent a scout to hide, Sierra said, running beside him. They're looking everywhere. Then we give them something to chase, John replied. He reached into his bag and pulled out the second walkie-talkie. He turned the volume up and tied it to a stick. Then he threw it deep into the opposite direction, where it made noise in the bushes. A second later, a red beam fired from above, hitting the area where the sound had come from. They're scanning everything. John said, We don't have much time. They kept moving until they reached a small cave in the side of the mountain. Inside, it was damp and cold, but it was cover. Sierra checked the beacon, still working, still pulsing. Close, she said. My children are close. John leaned against the cave wall, catching his breath. I think that wasn't the real attack, he said. Sierra looked confused. I mean, John continued. That thing in the cabin, he was just watching, reporting, the real enemy is coming next. Sierra closed her eyes. If they send the prime hunter, we can't run. John stood straight. Then we don't run, we fight. She looked at him, surprised. With what? He pulled a metal piece from his bag, part of the drone he had destroyed. With this, he said. And with human ideas, Sierra smiled softly. Humans are strange. John grinned. We get that a lot. Outside the cave, a red light blinked. Again in the trees, the trackers had their location. The game had changed. Now it wasn't just a chase. It was a war. Asterisk, the cave was quiet. Too quiet. John stared into the darkness beyond the entrance, his ears tuned to every sound. The wind whispered outside, and far away, thunder growled behind the mountains. Beside him, Syrah sat cross-legged, holding the beacon close to her chest. Its light blinked faster now, each pulse stronger than the last. "They're close," she said softly. "My children." "I feel them." John nodded, but his face stayed tense. "They're coming too," he said. "The trackers." He looked at the drone part in his hands, turning it over, studying the circuits. "If we don't make a move soon, they'll catch us," he added. "But we're not going to wait." Sarah looked up. "What will we do?" "We're going to steal time," John replied. "Buy it, with every trick we've got." He took out a small black pouch filled with batteries, tape, nails, and wire. Human things, simple tools. But he smiled, as if holding a box of weapons. Syrah tilted her head, confused. "This is your plan?" John grinned. "We're not soldiers, Syrah. But sometimes a trap doesn't need to explode. It just needs to confuse." He connected the drone part to a battery and rigged it with a loose wire if they're using heat sensors or motion scans. He explained, "This thing will show them something alive. Something that isn't us." He built 2 decoys like that and then handed Sarah a compass. "The beacon says your children are west," he said. "So we send these to the east and south." Syrah placed 1 decoy in her cloak and climbed out of the cave. John followed, carefully watching the tree lines. The forest no longer felt alive, felt like a trap waiting to close. They split briefly, planting the fake signals far apart. Then they met again at the edge of a rocky slope. Below them was a wide valley, green and quiet. In the middle stood a broken spaceship, half burning, the crash site. Syrah whispered, tears forming. They were here. As they moved closer, the beacon flashed wildly. A small cry echoed through the tree, soft, high-pitched, like a child calling out. Syrah broke into a run, her steps quick but careful, behind a fallen wing. 2 small figures huddled under a piece of metal. "Mother." One of them cried. Syrah dropped the beacon and fell to her knees. Arms open, her children ran to her, clinging tightly, their eyes wide with joy and fear. John stood back, watching the reunion. For a moment, there was peace. He let them have that moment, even though time was running out. Then the beacon blinked red. Once, then again. John's face hardened. "They found us," he said. From above the valley, a loud hum grew. Lights cut through the trees like lasers, sweeping side to side. A black triangular ship hovered into view, silent but deadly. "They sent the prime hunter," Syrah said in a broken voice. "He never fails." John looked at the ruined ship, then at the prime hunter's craft above. "We need a way out," he said. Now Sarah nodded, but fear filled her eyes. "My ship is broken. Beyond repair," she said, "but the energy corette still works." John rushed to the ship and found the glowing orb near the back. It pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and unstable. "What happens if we overload it?" he asked. "It will explode," Syrah said. "Enough to destroy this place." "Yes," she replied, "but it will give us time." John helped her pull the core loose and placed it near the ship's open hatch. He set the decoys nearby too, and connected all with the last battery and wire he had. 10 minutes, he said. "That's all we get." They ran, fast and silent. Syrah carried her children, 1 in each arm. John led the way, using the compass and beacon to stay west. Behind them, the hum grew louder. The prime hunter had landed, red lights scanning the valley. It found the decoys and moved toward the ship. 7 minutes. John and Syrah reached the cliff's edge. Below was a deep lake, hidden by fog. "There's a boat," John shouted, pointing to a small wooden dock at the base. He grabbed a vine and tied it to a thick tree root. "Hold your kids," he said. "We're jumping, one by one." They slid down the cliffside, using the vine. Sarah nearly slipped, but John caught her halfway. They reached the dock just as the explosion roared behind them. The sky turned red for a second, then white. A giant ball of light swallowed the valley. The trackers were gone, at least for now. John untied the boat and pushed it into the lake. Sarah sat in the back, her children asleep in her arms. She looked at John, her voice soft but full of gratitude. "You gave us a second chance," she said. John smiled tiredly. "No," he replied. "You gave me a reason to fight." Above them, the sky returned to calm blue, but far beyond the clouds, something else was watching, and the final chapter was yet to come. The lake was quiet. The boat drifted slowly across the water, pushed by the early morning breeze. John sat at the front, eyes scanning the fog, hands tight on the rope. Behind him, Sarah held her children close, wrapped in a blanket. They had survived the explosion. They had escaped the trackers, but it wasn't over. Above the clouds, the enemy ship still circled Earth. It hadn't attacked yet. It was waiting, watching, calculating. John knew they'd come again, this time. Not for search, but for war. When the boat reached shore, John led them into a nearby town. It was small, quiet, an old perfect for hiding. He called an old friend, a mechanic named Frank. Frank owed him a favor from a long time ago when John told him everything. Frank didn't laugh. He just nodded and said, "Let's get to work." They hid Sarah and her children in Frank's workshop basement. John and Frank began building. Sarah helped, showing them how to connect alien tech with human tools. They made something new, something neither species could build alone. A jammer. It could block tracker signals, at least for a short time. Shield generator, powered by Earth batteries and alien crystals. And one more thing, a small beacon that could send a message. Not just to the enemy, but to space. To anyone listening, they worked day and night. John barely slept. Every hammer hit. Every spark from a wire reminded him of what was coming. One night, while adjusting the jammer, John heard a soft knock on the door. He opened it and found a man in a black suit, wearing sunglasses at night. The man showed no badge, no name, but he spoke with calm authority. "We know what's happening," he said. "We've been watching too." John's heart sank. "Are you here to take her?" The man shook his head. "No," he said. "We're here to help." Behind him, two black SUVs pulled up. More agents stepped out, not armed, but ready. They brought equipment, maps, and one thing John didn't expect: a military-grade satellite link. "You're not the first to meet them," the agent said, "but you're the first to fight back." For the first time, John didn't feel alone. Now, it wasn't just one man and one alien woman. It was humanity, waking up to the truth. The final plan formed quickly. Sarah would activate her beacon near the town's radio tower. It would send a powerful signal, one that would reveal the enemy ship's position to space. At the same time, John and the agents would launch the jammer and shield. It wouldn't destroy the ship, but it would trap it, slow it down, buy time, and maybe, just maybe, call someone stronger. The night came fast. Clouds moved like waves, and wind howled through empty streets. The town had been evacuated for training drills, but everyone knew something was coming. John stood at the tower, holding the beacon in his hands. Sarah stood beside him, children hidden underground. She looked at the sky, then at him. "Are you afraid?" she asked. John smiled. "Only a little, because I know we're not finished yet." She pressed her fingers to the beacon. It lit up brighter than ever, sending a golden pulse into the sky above. The alien ship reacted immediately. Red lights turned on, weapons opened. The trackers were coming fast. John shouted, "Now!" The agents activated the jammer. Waves of static spread from the hilltop, disrupting signals and weapons. The ship froze in mid-air, lights flickering. It was caught stuck between control and chaos. Sierra grabbed John's arm. "Look." A new light appeared in the sky, far beyond the clouds. Blue, shining, fast. Another ship, different, elegant, larger than the enemy vessel. It fired a single beam of light, clean, silent, and precise. The enemy ship cracked like glass, then vanished. No explosion, no fire, just silence. Everyone stared. The sky returned to peace. The beacon blinked once more, then turned off forever. John stood still, heart pounding. What was that? Sierra whispered, "My people, they heard us," from the blue ship. A smaller vessel dropped slowly and landed nearby. Two tall figures stepped out. Their faces calm, eyes full of light. They bowed to Sierra, then looked at John. One of them spoke. In clear, perfect English, "Thank you, human. You protected what we could not." Sierra turned to John, eyes wet with emotion. "I must go," she said. "They will take my children home." John nodded, not trying to stop her. "You'll be safe now," he said. "That's all that matters." She reached into her cloak and handed him a small crystal. "Not goodbye," she said, "just until we meet again." The ship lifted into the air, silent and graceful. It vanished among the stars. John stood alone on the hill, the wind brushing through his hair, above him. The night sky was full of stars, again some familiar, some no longer so far away, and deep in his pocket, the crystal glowed gently, a reminder that one simple act of kindness had changed the universe.